As Deion Sanders continues to shake up the college football world, we have to talk about kind of what I'm thinking here about where this class is going to end up and who Deion Sanders or Coach Prime, as a lot of you guys are wanting to refer to him as, is targeting and who he could potentially flip. There's a lot of five-star names out there, and after what we saw Deion Sanders do with Travis Hunter in the 2022 cycle, you would have to sort of think here that Deion Sanders could potentially pull off a flip once again. Now, before we get into it, please go ahead, hit that like and the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. What 5 stars do you guys think Deion Sanders is realistically going to be able to go out there and flip like he did with Travis Hunter last year? Okay, so last year we saw Deion Sanders flip the number 1 overall prospect in the 2022 class, Travis Hunter, from Florida State over to Jackson State. Now, why is this significant? It's significant because he chose to not only flip from a place that he loves so dearly, a place that a lot of people felt like, hey, this was a hard commit. He flipped to an FCS program. But he chose to go play with Coach Prime, and he chose to go play with a guy that he knew could potentially develop him into a star player and potentially a top 10 draft pick. And when you look at what Travis Hunter has done at Jackson State, it's nothing short of, man, we all know this guy's good and he's going to be a great player in the future. But as we start to head into early signing day, you have to really start asking the question, is there any 5-star guys that Deion Sanders can potentially land or flip during this time period? Now, I personally don't think Deion Sanders is going to be able to land a 5-star on early signing day. I think it's just too quick of a turnaround time from him being done coaching at the Celebration Bowl, coming back to Colorado and trying to put something together within 5 days. However, or it's 4 days. However, if there are 5 stars that could sign on early signing day and choose not to for their respective programs, especially some of the guys that we're going to talk about, I think that we have to start really considering, is Deion Sanders up to something? The first guy that I really want to cover is somebody that realistically I'm sure all of you guys have heard about, and it's the 5-star offensive tackle out of Des Moines, Iowa, Kadyn Proctor. And Kadyn Proctor might be the best offensive tackle in this class, mainly just because of his size and his burst and his good technique with his hands. Right? I don't think there's a lot of guys in this, or specifically a lot of offensive linemen that are great with their hand technique and their footwork. And I think Kadyn Proctor checks all the boxes that you need for an offensive tackle. Now, why is this significant? Well, right now he is currently committed to Iowa. And there has been a lot of smoke around Oregon and what Adrian Clem is doing out there. But he's also starting to gain some traction with Alabama. And this was expected. When we saw him commit to Iowa, I did not expect for this commitment with Iowa to stick. But never in a million years would I have thought Colorado would be trying to sneak in on this commitment. But Coach Prime, he comes in and changes everything. And listen, he has his son coming up there to play quarterback, and he needs people to protect him because at the Power 5 level, you need guys that are going to be able to get in the trenches and they're going to be able to fight for you. And that's exactly what Kadyn Proctor is going to do. And Kadyn Proctor, being the number 12 overall player in the 247 composite, this would be a huge win for Coach Prime in Colorado, especially in his first year. Now, I do want to preface this by saying before we get on to the next 5-star, you're going to see a lot of guys want to take the risk and want to give Deion Sanders a shot. Because the previous, I guess, thing that was holding some of these guys back was, well, he plays at an FCS program. He's at a Power 5 program now. And yeah, it might not be the flashiest Power 5 program, but he's there. So you're getting to play Power 5 ball, and you are potentially going to get more NFL looks. Now, I mean, NFL scouts, they will find you wherever you're at. Look at Carson Wentz and where he was at and where he's at now. There's plenty of other guys. Look at Aaron Donald and those guys. They didn't go to prominent schools, but NFL scouts found them. And so you have to really, and I think Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, will use that in his pitch, that scouts will find you wherever you're at. But now I'm at a Power 5 school, and you can play Power 5 competition. And I think that's important. So one of the next guys that we have to talk about is the 5-star defensive lineman, Peter Woods from Alabaster, Alabama. One of the things that I think is interesting about him is this is a guy that Alabama folks really, really wanted. They wanted him a lot, and they still do. If Peter Woods today wanted to come over here and flip his commitment to Alabama, they would open him with welcome arms. But, I mean, now, who wouldn't accept Peter Woods with open arms? Peter Woods is currently ranked as the number 33 overall player in the 247 composite as the number 3 defensive lineman, currently committed to Clemson. And you can imagine getting looks from a lot of guys all over the country. He possesses an adequate size at 6'3" at 259 pounds. He's pretty explosive off that first step on the line of scrimmage. And he's an explosive player that can be used in multiple defensive alignments and some situational pass rush ability off the edge. Here's the deal. For Deion Sanders to be able to come in here and take a guy like Peter Woods on the defensive line, a guy that, you know, Alabama wants and Freddie Roach out there want tremendously, that's a huge win. I think this would be even bigger than Kadyn Proctor. Because you now show that you can not only go get elite offensive players, but you can go get the elite defensive guys as well. And we've seen this throughout college football, especially with the team that you guys see right behind me. You cannot win a national championship or potentially get to a national championship without a defense and without recruiting guys like Peter Woods. Multiple times did you see Lincoln Riley not recruit the best of the best defensive linemen, or they started, or not the defensive linemen, defensive players, and slowly start to get out of those recruitments. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, he knows what he's doing. And he knows you got to have a good defense. And he knows it starts with players like Peter Woods. And so this is a guy that I think right now, if you look at like a level of high, medium, or low in terms of could they go out there and get them, I think you put him in the low category. But if Peter Woods comes out there for a visit to Colorado, this is something that I think everybody has to keep their eyes on. And remember, Deion has done it once. He can do it again. So somebody else that I think we all potentially need to keep watching right now, and Florida State fans, I don't want you guys to hate me even more. And this is not because Oklahoma's playing you in a bowl game, but this is just because I think Deion Sanders is going to be able to recruit the state of Florida really well. There's a 5-star wide receiver out there by the name of Hakeem Williams. And I think if you're Florida State, you have to be on edge about what Coach Prime can come out there and do to you. Hakeem Williams was a guy that was being highly recruited all over the country, places like Alabama and Georgia. Ultimately, he decides to stay home at Florida State. He's hailing from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Here's the deal, though. I expect Deion Sanders to go into the state of Florida and to recruit his home state extremely well. And I think it starts with another guy like Hakeem Williams at Florida State. We've seen him take guys from there before. Who's to say he can't do it again? Now, again, I think this is a low chance, but imagine Shedeur throwing to Hakeem Williams. I think this would be a huge addition to that offense, especially with some of the guys that he could be potentially bringing in the transfer portal. Now, there is another 5-star that we could talk about, but we're going to talk about him towards the end. Let's talk about some of the guys that he could be bringing through the transfer portal, because there's a lot of them out there. So you've got Shedeur Sanders, his son, at quarterback, who, let's be honest, the kid could be a Heisman candidate next year. Now playing at the Power 5 level, he has the opportunity to compete for one of the most prestigious college football awards out there. Now, you guys know how I feel about it, because I don't feel like they put the best players of the best up there every year, but that's just my opinion. It's the best player on the best team is what it is. But you're going to see other guys like maybe Katron Evans, the 4-star defensive lineman, top 200 player out of the 2020 class. There's also Quadarius Davis, the 4-star wide receiver, top 150 player. There was also the JUCO transfer in 2020, Dejon Warren, the cornerback. I mean, these are all guys that I think potentially could transfer from that 2021 class to Jackson State. And then you go look at what he did in 2022 on the recruiting trail. Obviously, Colorado and Deion, Coach Prime, they have to be extremely favorable right now to bring Travis Hunter back. Now, you've heard me guys talk about it. I do believe that there is a chance that maybe Travis Hunter could explore his options elsewhere. And I know some of you guys jumped in the comments on that video I made and were like, why does everybody keep making a video about this? I'm telling you guys, nobody's going to really get into the details on it. But if we're saying it, it's probably something that you guys really need to pay attention to. Now, that's not me saying that he's not going to end up at Colorado, but maybe he doesn't just immediately enter the transfer portal and flip over to Colorado. Maybe he enters the transfer portal, takes, 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, explores options elsewhere to make sure he still is in the best position to be able to excel in his future as a college athlete. Another guy that I so heartedly expect to end up at Colorado, Kevin Coleman, the 4-star wide receiver, top 55 player in 2022. This is another guy that I think, you could bring there and can make an immediate impact for the Colorado Buffaloes. Because when you look at what the Colorado Buffaloes were last year at 1-11, it was not good. It was not good at all. And you would expect that they are going to be able to make an immediate turnaround in Deion Sanders' first year. But when you look at what they're taking and building on from last year, I mean, they played in some close games. They lost by a touchdown to Arizona State. They played USC pretty close in the first quarter, second quarter, but then they got blown out. I think there are some good things for Colorado and Deion Sanders to build on. And I think with him bringing some of these guys throughout the transfer portal and potentially in this recruiting class, you could see an immediate turnaround. Now, Colorado's got an extremely brutal schedule next year. You're talking about to start the season at TCU. You come home and you've got Nebraska and you've got Colorado State. I believe Colorado State would be a pretty easy win, but those first 2 games are not a given. You could easily start the season 1-2. Now, could you essentially get on a roll at Arizona State, at Arizona, put yourself at 3-2 before you play Oregon State at home? Yeah, you totally could. There's a chance that by the time they have to play USC, they could be 5-2. And really, when you start to play USC, that is the brute force of your schedule. USC, at Oregon, at UCLA, at Utah, at Washington State. That's going to be the killer, having to go on the road 4 straight times. But it all comes down to, can Deion Sanders get guys that can play in the trenches and compete at a high level? And I think he's going to be able to do it throughout the recruiting trail. Right now, Colorado sits at number 69 overall in this recruiting class, flipping Dylan Edwards from Notre Dame, the 4-star running back, top 200 player. And you've heard Dylan Edwards and others say that it's coming. There's going to be a lot of 4- and 5-star guys that are flipping commitments and wanting to come play for Coach Prime and give it a shot in Boulder. And I believe it. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what's going to happen because this is the drama that we live for on National Signing Day. This is the drama that we live for. And so let's talk about the last 5-star that I think some of you guys should be paying attention to. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, I don't think there's any smoke around this. I don't think there's any smoke here. And one of our buddies over at Ty over at Roundtable Sports, if you guys have not checked out his podcast, you guys should totally jump over there, check it out. He'll tell you guys that I'm crazy, I'm off my rocker, and somebody should probably throw me in a mental institution. But I think somebody that you all should be keeping an eye out for is the 5-star safety, Caleb Downs. Why is that? Well, one, if you're anybody in the defensive backfield, why would you not want to go play for Deion Sanders? If Deion Sanders comes knocking on your door, why would you not want to potentially give it a look and potentially entertain that idea? But who was the number one, or who was the main recruiter for Caleb Downs while he was at Alabama? Oh, yeah, that's right. Charles Kelly. Where's Charles Kelly at now? He's at Colorado. Now, again, this might mean nothing. It might not matter. You know, Nick Saban is the ultimate closer. But I personally think that there's got to be at least something there to potentially look at. This is something that you might want to at least keep your eye on. Now, you see Tre'Vius Robinson getting in on this recruitment for Alabama, picking up the slack. So Alabama might have him locked down. But I would be a fool to not at least potentially entertain this idea and keep an eye on it. So go ahead, jump down in the comments below. Let me know where you guys think Colorado ends up in this 2023 cycle on the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal. We didn't even talk the transfer portal today, so we'll have to make another video about that tomorrow and talk about some of those updates. But let me know what you guys think. Does Colorado flip any 5-stars? And if so, who do you guys think those 5 stars are? Did I leave anybody out?